Welcome back to Real Sports Live. There's a new book out for the ultimate Utah Jazz fan.
Yeah, it's called 100 Things Jazz Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die, and we are thrilled to have in studio to talk about it the author of said book, Mr. Jody Genessy. Jody, this is awesome. This is like the Bible for jazz fans, isn't it?
Yes. The Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Quran, whatever you want to call it. It's all of them.
That's awesome.
Why did you decide to write this book?
Well, so I covered the Utah Jazz for 9 years, and we decided that I should probably get to know my kids a little bit. 4 little people kept saying, "Hey, Dad." I'm like, "Who are you?" So I got off the beat, and Triumph Books reached out to me, and they have this series, 100 Things Such and Such Team or Program Should Know and Do Before They Die, and they wanted me to do the jazz book, and so it was actually perfect timing. Even though I was ready for a break and was kind of ready to never write about the Jazz.
Just when you think you're out.
I'm out. I'm in more than ever.
So how many players and coaches did you end up interviewing?
Yeah, so I mean, throughout the course of my career, I used some of those interviews. I interviewed a lot of different people over the time, for Stockton, Malone, Sloan, Frank Layden.
Wow.
Just a lot. Daryl Griffith, you know, talked to Thurl Bailey, just a lot of different people. Then did a lot of research. I wanted to have some stuff that's it was like true to the time period.
Yeah, it goes up to current day. You write about Donovan Mitchell and then the current team as well.
Yeah, and then there's stuff that goes way back to Pete Maravich and Truck Robinson back in the New Orleans days. I wanted to include some of that. I wrote a chapter about the Utah Stars as well.
Oh, wow.
Just anything that kind of was in that realm of Utah Jazz and NBA and professional basketball, I thought would be fun to cram in there.
What are some of the things that you've heard from Jazz fans? Because the book's been out for a little bit now, and you've had some book signings. What are some of the things that Jazz fans are telling you that maybe they didn't know about until they read the book?
Yeah, I mean, I have a Jazz fan, Moni. She's a kind of a fun, famous blogger for the Jazz, and she really enjoyed it. She knows everything. She knows more about the Jazz than any of us do. But she's like, wow, I even learned some stuff about. They had 8 different names that they were. Jazz was not the front runner at first.
No, I remember
like there was like the Delta. There are all these different names that New Orleans was going to name it, and then I thought she didn't know that, and so other Jazz fans didn't know exactly the transition or why Pete Maravich didn't end up being a star here, and so there's little fun tidbits along the way.
And they probably didn't know that John Stockton actually had a sense of humor. He had some funny quotes in this book.
Right. I mean, I decided to devote an entire chapter to John. He's a really funny guy.
He really is. You wouldn't know it the way he's
Yeah, he wasn't funny to us.
Yeah, right.
But he got in the bus, and he would tease Karl Malone, and he would be like, there was one story where John Stockton was everybody's on the bus except for Karl, and John's like, "Hey, bus driver, let's just leave. Let's get out of here." And then Karl walks on the bus, and John's like, "Hey, Karl, everybody's trying to get you to get the bus to leave. I made sure that it stayed here." You know? Yeah, right.
I was particularly impressed with page 299, chapter 89.
I know
because
you're going.
I'm in it.
You
mentioned
Wesley
me. At the riots down in Los Angeles in '92 playoffs.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was an important. Like you were there.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Oh yeah.
And that was one of those situations where I wasn't there, and so I thought it would be really good for the readers to see what happened at that time. And so I used that quote from you from the Salt Lake Tribune.
Do you need me to go on tour with you and sign?
That would definitely help.
Page?
Yes.
He wants to sell books, Wes. He wants to increase the sales.
That was an insane,
crazy time.
insane situation.
Now, were there things that players that maybe you asked players and coaches about that they didn't want to talk about, that they didn't want in the book that maybe you wanted to?
Well, I did. I had an entire chapter that the publisher decided to take out, and it was some of the more unsavory type things that happened. And so, which I don't know. I thought
locker room talk.
Well, no, it was more like Luther Wright and his situation, and Bobby Hansen fighting with Bart Kofod and stuff.
I remember that.
You know, and maybe we'll sneak it in on the next book. But
you got to save room for the next 100 things.
Exactly.
How's the book being?
The 100 unsavory things.
There you go. How's the book being received?
People love it. So far, I've gotten really good feedback on it, and for me, it was kind of a labor of love. I grew up as a Jazz fan, so it was kind of fun to take a stroll through memory lane. And
were there things that you found that you didn't know?
Oh yeah,
that you didn't know about.
Yeah, I mean, like I had forgotten. I was a young kid when Frank Layden fined Adrian Dantley 30 pieces of silver because he felt like he betrayed him like Judas. And so there is some religion in here. Frank Layden didn't believe in fining players money.
Okay.
But 30 it was obviously symbolic.
Right.
He sent him home from Phoenix.
He sent him home from Phoenix.
Yeah.
Adrian Dantley was not. He had his own press conference after. It was a big deal back in the time. He also fined Karl Malone 2 pennies for giving his 2 cents worth in the situation. So, I asked Frank.
It was probably worth it for Karl.
I asked Frank about that. I said, "Do you feel bad about that?" He's like, "No, I never feel bad when I'm right."
Where can people find the book?
So it's online, but it's
right
also
here in his hand.
Yeah, it's right here.
If you see Jody, he's probably carrying one around. Just take it
in my trunk. No, it's online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to the King's English Bookshop here in town. It'll be coming out into Barnes & Noble shops. Hopefully at the team store at the arena here soon. So
check out the book.
Yes.
Check out page 299/300.
He's in it. I want to be in the next one, Jody. I think I've been here long enough now. I can be in the next edition. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks for having me,
Jody. It's great. All right, we got to step aside for just a minute, but coming up, Frank Jackson, the former Lone Peak High star, talks about his first NBA game back in his home state. Stick around.